David Smith here with one more flipped classroom math video lesson. 3 tips before we start. First, remember you can adjust the playback speed to make it faster or slower as you like. Second, you can pause the video at any point to catch up on your notes or jot down some questions. Third, you can turn on the captions so you can read my words on the screen. Do you know why the Romans weren't very good at algebra? X was always 10. Okay, today's topic, equation of a line. Now basically, an equation is a rule that connects the x and y coordinates for all points on that line. So remember, the line is just made up of a bazillion points all perfectly in a row that make a line. And every one of those points has an x and a y coordinate. And that's how we graph them. The graph just shows all of those points that fit the rule for that line. Another way to look at this is to think of the equation or the rule as this box. And what you do is you take your x, it's an input, you put it into the box, and the rule, the equation or the function, takes that x value, does some stuff to it, does some algebra, some computation, and it spits out a y, and that's the output. So that's another way to look at a line equation. Okay, equations of lines come in lots of forms. This one is a real standard go-to form. It's called gradient-intercept form. It's also called slope-intercept form. Remember, gradient and slope are two words that are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. So here's the form with just letters. Y equals mx plus b. Now what do these m and the b stand for? M is your gradient or your slope, and b is your y-intercept. Now this form is really handy because you can graph the line equation really easily if it's put in this form. But before we do that, pause the video for a sec, take a look at this example equation, and see if you can write down what m is and what b is. Okay, if you noticed that the m comes in front of the x, and here's a 1/2, so the m is 1/2, and then the b is out here on the end, so the b is 4. Now, 4 represents the y-intercept. So really, a better way to write that would be the point 0, 4. That describes it fully. Okay, so now let's graph this equation. We start with the intercept. We know that point is 0, 4. So over here on my handy-dandy coordinate plane, I'm going to go, x is 0, so I stay on the y-axis and I just go up that 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my y-intercept. So we know that the line crosses this y-axis at that point. That's what the y-intercept means. Now we know our slope. Pause the video and think about how you might use slope to complete this graph. We need 2 points to draw the line. Okay, if you realize that you can start on this point and then use the slope to find another one, you were right. Rise over run. So we go up 1 and over 2 for this line. So I'm going to go up 1 and then over 2. There's my line. Okay, let's look at a second form for a line equation. This one is a little less useful, comes into play a little later in the chapter, but we're introducing it right now. This one is called general form, and it's ax plus by equals c. And notice how I've drawn these a, b's, and c's in uppercase capital letters. That's important because that indicates to you that a, b, and c are integers. So that means no fractions. A, b, and c have to be integers. So if you get an equation that has fractions in here and they say convert that to general form, that's what you have to do. You have to change these into integers. And we'll do one of those in a minute. Also, a has to be positive. B and c could be negative depending on the equation, but you have to manipulate this equation to make a positive. So if you're looking at one of these and the a is negative, you just multiply the whole equation by -1, both sides, and you'll fix that. Okay, let's take a look at an equation and do some stuff with it. Check this out. Y equals -1/4 x plus 3/4. First question, which form is this in? If you said slope-intercept form, you're correct. One thing to realize is that slope-intercept form is an equation solved for y. So y is alone on one side of the equation. That gives you slope-intercept form. The other side is going to automatically fall into that form. Okay? Second question. What is the slope? Pause the video, write it down. Okay, if you got -1/4, you're right. Remember, the slope is just the value stuck on the x term. Okay? Now pause the video and write down the y-intercept. Okay, if you got 0,3/4, you're right. That's the y-intercept. That's where this line cuts the y, or the vertical axis on the graph. Okay, this last step says convert this to general form. So right now this is not in general form. We have fractions, and then we don't have our integers, and it's also not with the x and y on one side and the constant c on the other side. So let's do that. Okay, so the first thing to do is get rid of these fractions. Now I have 1/4, -1/4, and +3/4. What would I do? If you came up with multiply both sides of the equation by 4, you're right. If I multiply both sides by 4, that's going to cancel these fractions out, and I'll have numbers in place. So let's do that. So 4 times y gives me 4y equals, now 4 times -1/4 is -4/4, which is just -1, which is just -x. Okay? Now 4 times 3/4 is going to be 12/4, which is 3. Now we're almost there. Remember, general form is ax plus by equals c. Now c is the constant. Notice there's no x or y next to it. So, and then x has to be positive. So right now x is in the wrong place. It's negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add x to both sides, and it will move it over. So plus, hang on, plus x. That's going to give me x plus 4y equals 3. Now that's general form. Same equation, same line. If you graph either one of these, it's going to be the same line, but just a different form for the equation. Okay, in that last screen, we converted from slope-intercept to general form. Now we're going to go from general form to gradient-intercept form. So here's your instruction, convert to gradient-intercept form. Here's our equation. You'll notice that's in general form. The x term is positive, the x and y are on one side, and the constant's alone on the other side. So we're there in general form. Now if you recall, from the last board, I mentioned that slope-intercept or gradient-intercept form is just a line equation solved for y. So what we have to do is we have to solve this equation for y, get y alone on one side. So our first thing is I have an x term over here with the y. So I need to move that over to the other side of the equation by subtracting it from both sides. Minus 7x from both sides. Bring down my 4y equals, now I can't combine these, they're not like terms, so I just have a 7x minus 9 over there. Now I'm not quite there. Y is alone, but it has a 4. It doesn't have any other terms, but we still got a 4 in front. So we need to divide all terms in this equation by 4. So the 4's here cancel out, and I get y equals minus 7/4 x minus 9/4. Now don't worry about getting fractions in these terms. It happens. You'll also have equations that work out nicely with just integers over here as well. Okay, I want to give you one of those to try. This is just like the last one. Here's an equation in general form, and it's asking you to convert it to gradient-intercept form. So go ahead and pause the video and work on that a little bit. See if you can get all the way to the solution. Okay, let's see how you did. So I have a negative on my y term. It's going to need to be positive. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 11y to both sides. Bring down my x. I have 5x equals 11y plus 2. Okay? So now I'm getting there. But now I'd like to I've got to get this 2 over here. I need to get my y as alone as possible. So now I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I'm going to get 5x minus 2 equals 11y. Okay. Now I'm going to continue over here. Just because we like general form to have the variables on one side and the constant on the other side, I'm just going to do a switcheroo here. I'm not actually doing any algebra, I'm just changing the order of the equation. 11y equals 5x minus 2. Now my last step, I have to get the 11 off the y, so I'm going to divide both sides of this equation by 11. I'm going to get y equals 5 over 11x minus 2 over 11. Now that you've watched the video, take a moment to jot down any additional notes, some questions, or a quick summary of the lesson. You can also re-watch the portions of the video that were a little bit challenging for you. If you enjoyed the video, please click like, and if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.